Biotech is one of the most high risk yet high reward sectors there are. And that makes it exciting, but also challenging. Usually in our sector, you're really pushing the boundaries of science. And many early stage companies are built around unproven hypotheses. And it can take years, sometimes decades, to validate a discovery through clinical trials. Most drug candidates or devices fail before they ever reach market. So that scientific risk is at the top. And that is why we have very specialized and nuanced funders in this particular industry.
Hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Leadership Exchange podcast. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet or on LinkedIn at Tracy S. Lee. I'm so excited here to have Maria Thacker Goethe, who is such an amazing person. We met, I don't know how long ago, Maria.
2 years ago, I think.
You know what? It was a year ago. We met a year ago. Yes, almost exactly a year ago. And it's been great to work with you in the Atlanta ecosystem on everything related to life sciences.
Definitely. It's been great to get to know you too, Tracy. And I really appreciate your enthusiasm and helping us connect, particularly as female leaders. It's been really inspiring.
Yes, it's been really fun to do that. And there's just so many amazing women, I feel like, in the health and life sciences space, in Atlanta specifically. So, you know, and we talk about kind of like breaking down barriers, right? Like everybody's working remotely. I mean, we have so many great people working, you know, who are at Moderna and Pfizer and all these like really big companies that live in Atlanta.
Yep.
But it's just about getting them out.
Yes. People still don't love getting out. Like, and I have mixed feelings about it myself. Sometimes it's great to stay home and just get some stuff, but then sometimes not. But, you know, I'm going to the office more. I won't lie, fighting traffic every day sometimes.
Yes. I love that. Well, you're doing so much in the Georgia Life Sciences ecosystem. You are the president CEO of Georgia Life Sciences. So if anybody's not part of that organization and is in the life sciences space, y'all should definitely be joining that. And, you know, I mean, Maria, you have so many events, or at least Georgia Life Sciences have so many different events going on. I'm excited about the upcoming summit. I know it's in a few months, but I'm still excited.
It's the end of August. Yes. Georgia Life Sciences Summit is the end of August. So we do anticipate selling out. So we're excited.
Yes.
We'll be announcing a program and some keynotes in the coming weeks.
Nice. Amazing. Well, you have so much energy as well, just like helping uplift life sciences and the ecosystem. So what personally excites you the most about working in the Georgia Life Sciences ecosystem?
Well, there's a lot. And if it's okay, I want to kick it off by saying, you know, a little bit about the organization, because I think your audience is very different than who I typically talk to.
Sure.
So GLS, formerly called Georgia Bio, our role is we are a trade association for the life sciences. And when I say life sciences, that is biotechnology and medical devices, or medtech as we call it, diagnostics and some digital health. Pretty much if it's regulated by the FDA or USDA, that really falls under our purview. So we like to say anything that heals, fuels, or feeds the world falls under life sciences. And we do a significant amount of work in advocacy and government affairs. That is our main pole in the tent. A lot around workforce development. And we work with our economic development partners really to grow the industry and help build opportunities to provide people jobs, help people live and work here in Georgia, and help our companies grow and do business to help boost the economic impact of the industry. But we're doing some new things too around entrepreneurship and innovation we're rolling out, and just in general find ways to help the industry network and connect. And, you know, I'm really, me and the team are really putting a lot of effort into find ways to do that in a more hybrid fashion. And I think that's where that tech sector comes in. We're trying to understand collaborative communities right now because not everybody can do in person the way they used to. But, and I will say that we do a lot of national work. While we are Georgia based because of our government affairs role, we spend a significant amount of time on Capitol Hill and working with federal partners as well in advocacy. But when it comes to like really what makes me excited about life sciences in Georgia, it's of course the people. We have amazing universities, and the people that work inside of them are enthusiastic about their innovations and everything. But we're at a real critical point now within the industry where we as an organization with our connections and collaboratives and leaders across the state can really help shape the future of the life sciences sector. And it's not just about advocating for the industry, it's having a strategy around that advocacy. and helping to have that strategy build connective tissue that supports innovation, education, economic growth, and I'll say, and frankly, health equity and access for our patients across the state. You know, I'm excited about some new workforce initiatives that we're internally working on right now to help prepare that next generation of workers that our employers are going to need, particularly in the manufacturing space. I'm really excited about a lot of these young PhD and postdocs that are just so excited about the industry and the innovations they're working on, and how passionate they are, that I see coming out of all of our universities. You know, the reality is we've continued to see it's the fastest growing industry in the state of Georgia. It has been for many years now. We're also the highest paid industry. So we're at a real pivotal point across the state where we can continue that growth pace and remain a leader, particularly in our region in the Southeast. And we're here to help navigate the complexities of our industry and a pathway forward, which we plan to do this summer. But we have to do it quickly. There's been new data from Biotechnology Innovation Organization's national report that Tennessee is about to surpass us. And I can tell you, having spoken to my counterpart there, they're using that talking point with their policymakers that they're about to surpass Georgia in the size of the life sciences sector. And that has a lot to do with some critical incentives they have in place. But all that being said, we have an amazing ecosystem, amazing universities, a vibrant community that wants to collaborate more intentionally. We do have CDC in our backyard. FDA has a location here as well. And it is very relevant for our industry. We are a supply chain hub. Our airport, our ports, all that matters to our industry, particularly as we see one of the fastest growing areas in the state of Georgia for our industry in biomanufacturing and the supply chain and distribution and the supply chain needs that they have. So lots of opportunity, but we need to come together and have a true roadmap forward as to what we want and how we want to shape the future of Georgia's life sciences sector.
Yes, there is so much work to do. I feel like every time I talk to folks in this specific sector, I get so exhausted because I'm like, oh my God, there is so much that needs to happen. And everybody really needs to mobilize. And it is really cool, right, to see these little pockets of people and groups. You know, Portal Innovations, I feel like, has just become such a hub for us as well, in terms of innovation and hosting events and things like that, where people can kind of see each other and kind of see, you know, the life sciences sector come together.
In fact, we're having our showcase on June 5th, our academic innovation showcase in partnership with Portal at Portal Innovations. The end of the month. We're excited about that.
It's really great. I mean, hosting, you know, I host these women startup founder investor type events for health and life sciences, and I'm shocked by how many amazing, you know, even just the slice of what female founders, right, of how many companies are here that are just building, and you know, just the things that are kind of like on the cusp of, you know, becoming really amazing things.
No, definitely. And it was funny, just a little sidebar. Me and the team were in Athens, Georgia. We had a happy hour this week in partnership with Invest Athens and UGA. By the way, there's a ton of activity in our industry in the Athens area.
Yes.
Strongly recommend reaching out to the Innovation Gateway there to learn more about it. But we were, earlier in the day, we had some meetings with Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health, which has a large site, and they just expanded and built a new R&D facility, which we were touring, and Johnson & Johnson. And I was in a meeting. I think there were 8 of us in that meeting. At the end of the meeting, we looked around and we realized we were all women, plus my teammate, Dr. Phil Gibson. And we were like, and Dr. Phil. So it was fun. So I think it's coming out in our BioBeat today that we're going to have a picture of a whole bunch of women from J&J and my team, and Dr. Phil we have right in the middle. So it was one of those rare experiences. But we are seeing more and more of it, where it was nice to, you know, be the majority in the room. Because I can tell you, 19 years ago, my first day with then Georgia Bio was a board meeting, and it was myself and I think one female board member in the whole room. So it's shifted. The dynamic has, I mean, it's not perfect yet, but it's moving in the right direction.
I love
and
that.
So many female founders. So yeah.
Yes, really, truly. So lots of trends and advancements kind of coming in, right? I mean, again, life sciences is moving so fast. Are there any that you really feel like are going to start reshaping the industry in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening right now, and there are things that have been moving in that direction to reshape thing, artificial intelligence, let's see here, robotics and 3D imaging and AI powered health solutions. It's really going to help is advancing the industry quite significantly. We're seeing that really used quite significantly, the machine learning and all that on the manufacturing side. So I think that's one area that we see a lot of opportunity and growth in. I think as we get to other areas that make me excited, it's always those early stage innovations from our universities. And that's why NIH funding is so critical, that really just provide the excitement and light the fire under me. Some areas that we're seeing, I would actually argue, are a bit more risk. And we have at the federal level something called the SBIR, STTR program, and that's up for reauthorization in August. So we're doing a lot of work with our colleagues across the country to help get that reinstated, and that builds upon the opportunity we have here in Georgia to develop a matching fund program. And while this impacts the life sciences sector, mostly, this does impact all innovation sectors that apply for SBIR grants, including the tech sector. So I'm very excited about an effort we're leading to build an SBIR, STTR matching grant coalition, so we can get a matching grant program here in the state of Georgia. Right now, the state of Georgia is the only state in the southeastern United States that does not have a matching program. And because of that, we are losing opportunities to retain companies and keep innovations here in our state, and of course, create jobs. But I'm really excited as we continue to see advancements in mRNA therapeutics and research in that area, and how we see big companies applying AI to make clinical trials move more quickly, and analyze the data more effectively, so we can be delivering therapies and treatments for patients in a more timely manner, because our pathway to market in our industry is extremely long, and any way we can shorten that using technology and these new innovations is just nothing but an opportunity. So those are just a few things.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there are so many opportunities, and hearing you talk, I feel like there's so much in big tech that's happening and all these different little things. But, you go into like AI for manufacturing, AI for drug development, and I mean, just AI is really just kind of affecting us all, right? So it's great to hear you.
Yeah, and
talk
my
about those
hope
things.
is, and I think, one message I would have for your audience, which I understand is more tech focused, is I think we're in my industry very used to moving at the 10 to 20 year pace to bring something to market, whereas in the tech sector it's much less than 10 years. I'd argue 5 to 8 is my guess. And as we see the tech companies bleeding into ours, I think there's a because we're so highly regulated, there's a learning curve that happens there, and sometimes it can be very frustrating, which I understand. But we're at the mercy of how we're regulated, and we can't rush some of these things. So I hope that AI and this machine learning and other opportunities, we're able to find ways to shorten that timeline, but also have a bit more understanding from the tech sector as to the restraints that we're under because of how we're regulated.
Yes. And so US is considered the hub for biotech, right?
Yes,
you would say.
Yes. Oh no, definitely. Yeah.
So I feel like, especially in this AI race that we're dealing with, right? And when we talk about AI, I think we're talking about efficiencies and probably mostly efficiency, right? Efficiency and driving more innovation, faster innovation, et cetera, et cetera. What should the US be prioritizing in terms of staying ahead and making sure that we're still competitors in the global market and stay ahead as number one?
Sure. Well, we're navigating some interesting times right now. So I will say that is quite frankly threatening our leadership as the global leader in biotech and medical device innovation. That the position we have held for decades in that area is not guaranteed. The hub for biotech and pharma is the US, specifically Boston, Cambridge area. And the reason that is, and the reason that we as a country are the global leader in this area in innovation, is because of very intentional investments, public-private collaborations, and frankly, a culture that embraces entrepreneurship. Um, Unfortunately, with some of the decisions that are being made, like cuts to NIH, NSF, BARDA, and other areas, it is putting that at risk. And there's plenty of information out there. I've been very public about this and have a couple statements on various cuts that have been proposed. That if we want to compete, we need to make smart decisions that allow us to continue to innovate and grow those early stage companies, and help build that pathway for innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, because otherwise we're going to see other companies coming in and poaching our talent and building their innovation pipelines and making them more competitive. My colleagues in a few other states recently put out an article in one of our industry outlets nationally that talks about how we're handing our title of biotech innovation, the global leader in biotech innovation, to China right now. And I recommend checking that out. But how are we going to compete globally, I think was your main question. And there's really a handful of areas. One is we need robust R&D infrastructure. And that's typically public investment in research through agencies like NSF and NIH and BARDA. And that is typically put into our academic institutions and research hospitals. So Emory, for example, has a significant amount of labs and a significant primate facilities as well to help enable a variety of different innovations. And let's pick vaccines. With cuts to NIH, maintaining these types of facilities that allow us to do specialized research and innovation research, excuse me, I had to use that word twice, it doesn't allow them to sustain that. So it's foundational science that allows breakthroughs to happen. And these cuts, that overhead rate that people like to, is referenced a lot right now in the news, it goes to sustaining those types of things. Not every university, not every a hospital has the capability of running trials and doing the type of deep research that you see at some of these mega research hospitals. Now, I'm not saying I don't disagree with efficiency or anything like that, or finding ways to balance our budget. I'm just saying that we need to be smart about it and be very careful about where we're cutting. Otherwise, we will lose that global leadership. So strong R&D and efficiency, strong intellectual property protections. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's the cornerstone of biotech competitiveness. They also help incentivize capital investment. So that, again, boosts economy, et cetera. Vibrant startups ecosystem. So I would argue we have a pretty vibrant startup ecosystem, but we're still working on connecting the dots and bringing people together. You mentioned Portal. That is a great step forward on a variety of fronts, including infrastructure. Georgia only had incubators at our research university. They didn't have an independent one where you could lease space until Portal arrived, and at least not one to that capacity. And they are filling a particular gap, but they're only a piece of a much larger puzzle. If you go to these ecosystems that are really built out, whether we're talking, Cambridge, Philadelphia, or RTP area, North Carolina, or even Seattle, they have multiple places like that. And they're accessible in all places and at all levels. So some might be more expensive, some might be more cost effective. And I think we also deal with, in the Atlanta market in particular, a geographic challenge of we're so spread out. So I think Portal fills a gap that supports that vibrant startup ecosystem and provides those educational opportunities and some of that connectivity. But that's only one piece of the puzzle and very Atlanta-centric. And we've got innovations across the entire state. Continuing on your question, though, regulatory leadership. FDA is the gold standard for regulatory science globally. Right now, our industry is significantly concerned about cuts, especially when we have such amazing new innovations that are going to help patients. Everything from cell and gene therapies to AI-enabled devices and personalized medicine. To stay on the competitive edge, we need to keep our regulatory leadership to remain trusted with our patients and, of course, be able to continue to move these innovations along. And then there's talent and workforce. Everybody is talking reshoring manufacturing. The current administration, when they were in office before, they were talking reshoring manufacturing. And they did make some steps in that direction. There are two organizations we're members of that we're helping coordinate at a state level. One is called Nimble for pharma manufacturing. One's called Biomade. And we're leading a Biomade coalition across Georgia to help build the skilled and diverse and educated talent that is needed to remain in that global race for manufacturing, among other areas. Right now, we can build all we want. We do not have the workforce, not just us here in Georgia, but across the country, to meet the needs of some of these large-scale manufacturing facilities in our industry. And one thing I will say that, as we've learned recently through some of our economic development conversations, is manufacturing in the life sciences, they're transferable skills. So you can go from a different manufacturing in, say, cars or batteries, like we have here in Georgia, and you can be trained by our industry to go into our space. So there's this misconception with and a stigma, I would argue, with manufacturing that should not be here. These are high paying, quality, and meaningful jobs that help us really just advance technologies to help everybody's neighbor and their family members. And then, of course, global collaboration and trade. That's always critical, and Atlanta is a hub for that. So as we continue to advocate for fair trade policies, and we're very concerned that the tariffs that are currently proposed and in place, are stifling supply chains and are going to make it very, very hard to build the way I know this administration would like some of these manufacturing sites to be built. It's going to make it very expensive. And that, unfortunately, will trickle down to communities in terms of costs. So, and all these are important. Talent, trade are important to the governor here in Georgia. Global talent, global trade, and just leadership and innovation. It is local. It's not just federal, and it is impacting us. So we have to remain the lead by being responsible about some of these changes.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're getting me on my soapbox here.
No, that's so great. I just feel like, again, there's so much as an industry that, needs to happen for life sciences. When you talk about cuts and things like that, I think about things like the Gates Foundation and some of these other, hopefully some foundations start to step in to maybe fill that gap, right? They didn't have to before, but if everything stays the way it is, then maybe there's some funding that goes to other things and can kind of be repurposed to the life sciences industry. You would hope.
For sure. You would hope, and I think I think particularly on the public health and innovations that impact community-wide global health, that type of thing, we will see groups like Gates step in and Robert Wood Johnson
and
Foundation
cancer.
And others, and cancer. Yeah. But they're still limited. I mean, the reality is the biggest investor in life sciences has historically always been the government. And that has a lot to do with the fact that of the risk involved in this industry. And the government allows pretty much any drug you've seen on the market. It has some sort of seed, whether it was an SBIR grant or something like that, that came from government to get it started. And you were not investors, even in our industry, they don't do there's very few that do that very early stage seeding. And I don't see that changing because of the risk pathway in our industry. That's why our industry has been very vocal about some of these cuts, and we'll continue to work to educate and have constructive conversations with our industry. And I think one other point on that is when we look at these NIH caps and cuts at our research universities, and you hear people say, well, they have these huge endowments, there's an understanding that I would argue nonprofits like myself and academia has to work to do a better job of explaining how these monies work and how they're restricted. We can't suddenly take endowment money, for example, that a funder has said you have to use this way and suddenly use it to maintain labs. That would be a misuse of funds and we get in trouble. So, there's also, an education when you get into the nuance of things that most people don't understand. And it's not their job to. We need to do a better job communicating on it.
Well, you talked a lot about investing in this industry, and you said to me before that this is the highest risk industry you can invest, which I think is such a quotable little bit. So how is investing in the life sciences industry different or compared to investing in the tech sector? Whether that's culturally or like what should people consider when thinking about it?
It's usually scientific risk. Yeah. So and I'm going to qualify that a little bit. Biotech is one of the most high risk yet high reward sectors there are. And that makes it exciting, but also challenging. So, and there's a lot of aspects from policymakers, investors that really frame the risk profile here. So scientific risk is always the top of the list. Usually in our sector, you're really pushing the boundaries of science. And many early stage companies are built around unproven hypothesis, and it can take years, sometimes decades, to validate a discovery through clinical trials. We all know what mRNA is now, and everybody thought it was new when they did the vaccine. They've been working on that for decades. That's just the reality. We just happened to push the science along because everything was well coordinated for COVID to make that happen in that moment. Most drug candidates or devices fail before they ever reach market. So that scientific risk is at the top, and that is why we have very specialized and nuanced funders in this particular industry. Approval pathways, that is always next on the list, and that's going to be the regulatory risk, especially through FDA. They're long, they're complex, they're expensive, and a single failed trial or some sort of regulatory hurdle can stop a product in its track, even after millions of dollars in investment. This industry is also capital intense, and that is why you hear about a lot of acquisitions in our industry once a company gets to a certain point. So hundreds of millions of dollars go into funding before an innovation, a company, before it reaches profitability, even if they ever do reach profitability. So the returns being uncertain and long dated, that can be make certain investors just not want to move into this area. So but that said, we're still the high reward industry. So if there is a win, that's great. And then of course, everything we're seeing right now, market and reimbursement risk, payers, including Medicare, Medicaid, and all that, and private insurance, everyone's got to agree to it. So we're always having conversations about how is this going to be paid for, and and will providers be willing to use it and push whatever it is that's coming to market. So especially when you're working on a new innovation that might take something that has been on the market for many, many years and compete with that, it's hard to get that through through the market and the get payers to agree to push it and cover it. So that is a whole other process. So you need to be able to show that clinical and economic value. And then finally, policy, geopolitical risk. Shifts in policy like we're seeing right now, it can dramatically affect the sector's viability and investors' confidence. So, and we're seeing that right now, quite a lot of investor confidence being impacted, not just in our industry, but across the board. And we can just look at the markets to see that. So,
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like in life sciences, a lot of times when I'm having those conversations, I'm hearing about the science side. Obviously with this, that we're kind of more on the technology side of things, right? So helping enable these innovations and things like that. But when you talk about who's going to pay for it, I usually hear that on the digital health side of things, right? Startups, like, okay, you have this cool thing, but who's going to pay for it? So it's interesting that you say that as well in the life sciences sector. I never thought about that as a thing, but it's cool to kind of like see the overlap, right? Like it's always a wonder of like, okay, health, life sciences, like where's kind of like the middle ground where everybody can get together and collaborate, which is what I always think about.
Yeah, no, sure. No, definitely. And how things are paid for matter. No one's going to cover it. That means no one's going to use it, which means investors won't get a return. So yeah, it's all connected, and it all happens at a certain point with the company kind of at once. So let me give you a super basic, and I'm pretty sure someone would criticize for how I'm going to put this, but I have to break things down, particularly for policymakers who need to understand a lot of different industries. So we don't expect them to understand this. How a drug comes to market, and you can see where the capital investment starts. You've got the early stage innovation in a university, and then that grows into a small startup, which moves through Series A, maybe B, and all that. And then they get a little bit bigger, and then they get to a point that they can go into a portal innovations, like a more established incubator. And then they eventually get to a point where they have to say, okay, I need to move out and pay my rent and have my own building or whatever. And so they might do that. But then when they move to this point where they need to scale manufacturing, it's very rare that they're going to do that in-house. So Vero Bio is doing that. They're doing an amazing job with their medical device, and they are building some manufacturing themselves. A lot of times that's when we see companies come in and get acquired by a GSK or a J&J or whatever. They have the manufacturing capacity, the distribution and logistics capabilities to globally move things around. So a lot of times you're going to see companies getting acquired at a certain point that seem to be doing great, and that's great. That means they got great valuation, and big company comes in and gives them a lot of money. So, and they take on the next level of risk. So it's kind of this pathway, and this may happen. This probably happens in the tech sector too. But that whole manufacturing distribution piece of it creates a whole level of complexities, because building a manufacturing site in our industry, I remember when Takeda was built by Baxter originally out in Covington, in Georgia. They built the whole building, and I remember it came up, and then they were just operating, waiting for it to get cleared to actually move product through it. I mean, I think it was a year or two. It was a crazy amount of time waiting till they could flip the switches on. They used it to train people at that point. So
Yeah.
nothing's easy. Yeah.
Well, it was so great chatting with you. I mean, for everyone listening, I think we all fully understand that Maria is a wealth of information, and Georgia Life Sciences is also a really, really, really great place to kind of figure out what's going on in Georgia, what's going on globally. Really important for companies to understand that. Maria, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Sure. Just go to GA for Georgia, lifesciences.org. Also, I am the least hidden person online. If you just search Georgia Biotech, Georgia Life Sciences, I'll probably be 1 or 2 clicks away.
Love it.
But and I'm very accessible on LinkedIn and other outlets. But and please follow us online. We didn't get to hit on a few things, public-private partnerships or stuff like that, but there's so much. And
you guys have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could plug
things.
it. So we
Yes,
just launched
please.
a podcast, Georgia Life Sciences podcast. Really encourage people to check out and listen to that.
And you can find that on the website.
Yes, you can find that on the website, all listening outlets. It's pretty straightforward. But we're talking about a lot of things. We're going to highlight some of the public-private partnerships you and I talked about offline.
Yes.
And I'll talk about, probably talk to some of our companies that have gotten some investment from ARPA-H and our ARPA-H Investor Catalyst Hub here in Atlanta, which is an amazing public-private partnership. And we'll also dive more into workforce. We run one of the longest-standing life sciences institutes in the U.S. and the only one in the Southeast. And have a public-private partnership with the state of Georgia, which we're very proud of, to train teachers on how to teach life sciences in the classroom. And we are getting asks about how is AI impacting that, even at the middle and high school level. So your industry is definitely a big piece of that. So there's lots of things that we'll talk about on that, and there's lots to know about this industry. And as we see the tech sector continue to come up with these amazing innovations, we know it's going to bleed over into our world, and we're here to help support and educate and connect you with those that can really help you understand our industry more intentionally, and help build our ecosystem entirely. So to be more robust. So
it is wild. It is wild how fast things are moving for everybody, and I love being at the forefront of that. I know. I can't even handle it. So. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and definitely tune in and check out Maria's Georgia Life Sciences podcast as well for more information here. And we'll see you all soon.